What I'm about to tell you isn't something you'll hear on the biggest financial channels. They don't teach this in school. Most people will go their entire lives without hearing these ideas explained to them, because the experience and wisdom accumulated by history's greatest investors were never widely distributed. These lessons weren't meant for the masses, they weren't designed to go viral, and they certainly weren't created to satisfy people looking for quick riches. The most valuable knowledge in investing has always been passed quietly, through decades of experience, painful mistakes, and the insights shared by a handful of extraordinary minds. Very few people ever had the privilege of learning directly from legendary investors. But today, I'm going to share with you the same principles that helped build some of the greatest fortunes in modern history. Principles that protected wealth during crises. Principles that turned fear into opportunity. And principles that most people will never truly understand. Because while the crowd is busy chasing excitement, the truly wealthy are busy studying something much more powerful: human nature. And if you understand what I'm about to show you, you'll begin to see money, markets, and wealth through an entirely different lens. Imagine this for a moment. Every morning when you wake up, you're handed a blank canvas. No one has painted on it yet. No one has decided what the final picture will look like. The brush is in your hand, and every choice you make throughout the day becomes a stroke on that canvas. Now think about that carefully. What kind of picture are you creating? Most people underestimate the power of a single day. They believe meaningful change requires dramatic action, life-changing decisions, or some extraordinary breakthrough. But when you study people who achieve remarkable things, you discover something different. The biggest transformations rarely happen overnight. Success is usually built through small actions repeated consistently, tiny disciplines, small improvements, daily decisions that seem insignificant in the moment but become life-changing over time. The opposite is also true. Failure rarely arrives all at once. It often appears through small neglected habits, repeated mistakes, and poor decisions that compound over months and years. That's why the gap between where you are today and where you want to be tomorrow is often much smaller than you think. The real difference comes down to what you're willing to improve every single day. Not once a year, not when motivation strikes, not when circumstances become perfect. Every day. Today we're going to explore 10 critical areas of life that deserve your daily attention. These aren't complicated strategies. They aren't hidden secrets known only to a select few. They're simple principles. But simple does not mean easy. And when practiced consistently, they can completely transform the direction of your life. Let's begin with the foundation that influences everything else: your attitude. Attitude. If there's one area of life that deserves daily attention, it's your attitude. Why? Because your attitude shapes how you experience everything else. It influences how you respond to setbacks, how you interpret challenges, how you interact with other people, how you view opportunities, and perhaps most importantly, it determines whether you move through life feeling empowered or defeated. Many people dismiss attitude as something soft or unimportant. They'll say things like, "It's just a mindset," "It's just positive thinking," "It's just how I feel." But attitude is much more than a temporary emotion. It's the lens through which you view reality. Two people can experience the exact same event and walk away with completely different conclusions. One sees a problem, the other sees a lesson. One sees rejection, the other sees redirection. One sees an obstacle, the other sees an opportunity to grow. The event didn't change, their attitude did, and that made all the difference. Think about the people you've met throughout your life. Have you ever noticed how some individuals seem to drain energy from every room they enter? No matter what happens, they find something to complain about. When things are good, they focus on what's missing. When things are difficult, they assume things will never improve. Their conversations revolve around limitations, frustrations, and reasons why success isn't possible. Now ask yourself, how attractive is that mindset to opportunity? How many people genuinely want to work with someone who constantly expects the worst? Not many, because negativity creates resistance. It pushes away possibilities before they ever have a chance to develop. Now compare that with someone who maintains a constructive outlook, not fake positivity, not pretending problems don't exist, but someone who believes solutions are possible, someone who stays calm under pressure, someone who chooses optimism without ignoring reality. People naturally gravitate toward individuals like that. Employers trust them. Teams rely on them. Friends seek their advice. Opportunities seem to appear around them more frequently. And that's not luck. It's influence. Your attitude affects how people perceive you, respond to you, and ultimately whether they want to invest their time, trust, and energy in you. That's why improving your attitude by even 1% every day matters. Maybe today you decide to complain less. Maybe tomorrow you choose to become more patient. Maybe the next day you focus on gratitude instead of frustration. These may seem like tiny adjustments, but small adjustments repeated consistently create extraordinary results. Consider how a skyscraper is built. No single brick creates the structure. No individual beam defines the building. Everything is added piece by piece, day after day, layer after layer. Your attitude works exactly the same way. Every day you strengthen it. Every day you reinforce it. Every day you make a choice about what kind of person you're becoming. One practice that can dramatically improve your attitude is learning to ask better questions. When something goes wrong, most people immediately ask, "Why is this happening to me?" But highly successful people ask different questions. What can I learn from this? How can I use this experience? What opportunity might be hidden here? Those questions create different answers, and different answers create different outcomes. This reminds me of something that made a lasting impression on me years ago. Charlie Munger often spoke about the importance of developing what he called a worldly wisdom approach to life. One of the reasons he became so respected wasn't simply because of his financial success. It was because he trained himself to think differently. When others reacted emotionally, he focused on understanding. When others looked for excuses, he searched for principles. When others complained about circumstances, he looked for leverage points. That perspective didn't emerge overnight. It was developed through decades of deliberate thinking and continuous self improvement. And that's exactly how attitude works. You don't wake up one morning with a world class mindset. You build it, one thought at a time, one choice at a time, one day at a time. As you continue strengthening your attitude, something remarkable begins to happen. Your confidence grows, your resilience increases, your stress decreases, your relationships improve, and challenges that once felt overwhelming start feeling manageable. Not because life became easier, because you became stronger. And when that happens, every area of your life begins moving in a better direction. Communication skills. The next area you must improve every single day is your ability to communicate. And don't underestimate how important this is. Communication affects nearly every result you get in life. Your career depends on it. Your relationships depend on it. Your leadership depends on it. Your ability to influence, persuade, negotiate, connect, and inspire all come down to communication. In many ways, your success in life is directly tied to your ability to transfer ideas from your mind into the minds of other people. Think about it. The greatest leaders in history weren't necessarily the smartest people in the room. The greatest entrepreneurs weren't always the most talented. The greatest salespeople weren't always the most knowledgeable. But many of them shared one common skill. They knew how to communicate. They knew how to move people. They knew how to make others understand, believe, and take action. And here's something that surprises a lot of people. Communication is not primarily about speaking, it's about understanding. Some of the most effective communicators you'll ever meet spend far more time listening than talking. They pay attention, they observe, they ask thoughtful questions, they seek clarity before offering opinions. While everyone else is waiting for their turn to speak, they're trying to understand what's really being said. That's where influence begins, because people don't care how much you know until they feel understood. When someone feels heard, they lower their defenses, they become more open, more trusting, more willing to connect, and that's why listening is one of the most underrated skills in modern life. Unfortunately, most people never truly listen. They're distracted. They're thinking about what they're going to say next. They're preparing arguments. They're checking their phones. They're physically present but mentally absent. As a result, important information gets lost. Misunderstandings happen. Relationships weaken. Opportunities disappear. But imagine what would happen if you improved your listening skills by just 1% every day. Imagine if you became fully present during conversations. Imagine if people felt genuinely heard whenever they spoke with you. How much stronger would your relationships become? How much trust would you build? How much more influence would you gain? The answer is obvious: a lot. Now let's talk about the other side of communication: expressing yourself clearly. Many people struggle here, not because they lack intelligence, but because their thoughts are disorganized. They know what they mean, but they can't communicate it effectively. And when you can't communicate your ideas clearly, people misunderstand your intentions, your message gets diluted, your influence decreases, your opportunities shrink. One of the best habits you can develop is learning how to simplify your message. The smartest communicators aren't always the people using the biggest words. They're the people who can take a complicated idea and make it easy to understand. Think about some of the most successful speakers, entrepreneurs, and leaders. They don't impress people with complexity. They create impact through clarity. Clarity builds confidence. Clarity builds trust. Clarity creates action. And clarity is a skill you can develop every day. Maybe today you focus on becoming a better listener. Tomorrow, you work on speaking more directly. The next day, you practice asking better questions. Then you work on controlling your tone, then your body language, then your ability to tell stories. Little improvements, repeated daily, massive results over time. One thing that separates exceptional communicators from average communicators is emotional intelligence. They understand that communication isn't just about words, it's about emotion. People rarely remember every sentence you say, but they remember how you made them feel. That's why emotional awareness matters. When you understand people's emotions, fears, hopes, frustrations, and aspirations, your communication becomes more powerful. You stop talking at people, you start connecting with them, and connection is where influence lives. I remember reading stories about how Warren Buffett spent years improving his communication skills. Most people see Buffett as a legendary investor. What they don't realize is that early in his career, he was terrified of public speaking. Absolutely terrified. Instead of accepting that limitation, he decided to improve it. He studied communication. He practiced relentlessly. He forced himself into uncomfortable situations. And eventually, one of his greatest weaknesses became one of his greatest strengths. That lesson applies to all of us. Communication isn't a gift, it's a skill. And skills can be developed. The more you work on it, the stronger it becomes. Here's another question. How many problems in your life have been caused by poor communication? A friendship that ended because of a misunderstanding, a relationship damaged by assumptions, a missed opportunity because you failed to express your value, a conflict that escalated because neither side felt understood. For most people, the number is significant, which means improving communication doesn't just help you create new opportunities, it helps you avoid unnecessary problems, and that alone can dramatically improve your quality of life. The truth is simple: the better you communicate, the better you connect. The more trust you build, the more trust you build, the more opportunities come your way. That's why communication deserves daily attention. Because every conversation is either strengthening your future or weakening it, and the choice is yours. Self discipline. Now let's talk about one of the most important success principles ever discovered: self discipline. If attitude is the foundation and communication is the bridge to other people, then self discipline is the engine that drives everything forward. Without it, goals remain wishes, dreams remain fantasies, plans remain pieces of paper. Because at the end of the day, success isn't determined by what you intend to do, it's determined by what you actually do. Consistently, over and over again, especially when you don't feel like doing it. That's where self discipline comes in. Self discipline is your ability to act regardless of emotion. It's showing up when motivation disappears. It's staying committed when excitement fades. It's doing what needs to be done even when nobody is watching. And here's the uncomfortable truth: most people massively overestimate the power of motivation. They wait until they feel inspired. They wait until they're in the mood. They wait until conditions are perfect. But highly successful people understand something different. Motivation gets you started. Discipline keeps you going. That's why self-discipline is often called the bridge between goals and accomplishments. You can have extraordinary ambitions. You can create a detailed plan. You can visualize success every day. But if you fail to execute consistently, none of it matters. Potential without discipline is wasted potential. Talent without discipline is wasted talent. Knowledge without discipline is wasted knowledge. Execution is what separates dreamers from achievers. And execution comes from discipline. The good news? Discipline works like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it becomes. Nobody is born with elite self discipline. It's developed, strengthened, built over time. one decision at a time, one action at a time, one day at a time. Maybe today you decide to wake up 20 minutes earlier, not because you have to, because you said you would. Tomorrow you finish a task before checking social media. The next day, you exercise despite not feeling motivated. Then you keep a promise to yourself. Then another. Then another. These actions may seem insignificant, but they're doing something important. They're training your identity. Every time you follow through, you send yourself a message. I am someone who keeps commitments. And that belief becomes powerful. Because eventually, discipline stops feeling like something you do. It becomes who you are. One of the biggest misconceptions about discipline is that disciplined people constantly rely on willpower. That's not true. In reality, the most disciplined people build systems. They create environments that make success easier. They establish routines. They remove distractions. They automate good decisions. They make productive behavior the default option. That's why habits are so important. A habit is simply discipline on autopilot. Think about reading. If you force yourself to read every day, eventually it becomes natural. You no longer debate whether you should read, you simply do it. The same applies to exercise, saving money, learning new skills, building a business. Anything repeated long enough becomes easier. And that's where real transformation happens. Not through heroic effort, but through consistent repetition. There's a story that perfectly illustrates this principle. A young entrepreneur had tremendous potential. Everyone could see it. He was intelligent, creative, energetic, ambitious. Whenever he started something new, his enthusiasm was incredible. But there was a problem. He never finished anything. Every new idea seemed more exciting than the last one. Every new opportunity pulled his attention away. Projects remained unfinished. Goals remained incomplete. Years passed. Very little progress was made. Eventually, he received a piece of advice that changed everything. Stop measuring yourself by what you start. Start measuring yourself by what you finish. That simple shift transformed his life. He began completing small tasks, then larger ones, then major projects. His confidence grew. His reputation improved. His results multiplied. And over time, the very trait that once held him back became one of his greatest strengths. The lesson is powerful. Discipline isn't built through giant victories. It's built through small completions. Small promises kept, small actions repeated, small wins accumulated. And eventually, those small wins create extraordinary outcomes. Something else happens when discipline improves. Your self-respect increases. Because deep down, we all know when we're breaking promises to ourselves. We know when we're avoiding work. We know when we're making excuses. And every broken promise weakens confidence. But every kept promise strengthens it. This is why disciplined people often appear more confident. They're not confident because life is easier for them. They're confident because they've proven to themselves that they can be trusted. And there is no greater source of confidence than self-trust. So if you're looking for one skill that can dramatically change your future, start here. Not with talent, not with luck, not with connections, with discipline. Because when discipline becomes part of your identity, almost everything else becomes possible. Mindset. The next area you must improve every single day is your mindset. Now, attitude and mindset are closely connected, but they're not the same thing. Your attitude influences how you react to situations. Your mindset determines how you interpret reality itself. It's the operating system running quietly in the background of your life. Every decision you make, every opportunity you pursue, every risk you take, every goal you set, every limitation you accept, all of it is filtered through your mindset. And here's what most people never realize. The biggest obstacles in life are often invisible. They're not outside of us, they're inside us. They're the beliefs we've accepted as facts, the stories we've repeated so many times that we've stopped questioning them, the assumptions we've made about who we are and what we're capable of becoming. Think about how many times you've heard people say things like, I'm not smart enough, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm not a natural leader, I'm just not good with money, I'm not the type of person who succeeds. The problem isn't that these statements are true. The problem is that people treat them as truth. They build their lives around them. They stop trying, they stop growing, they stop challenging themselves, and eventually those beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies. You see, your mind is constantly searching for evidence to support whatever you already believe. If you believe success is impossible, you'll notice every obstacle. If you believe growth is possible, you'll notice every opportunity. The world hasn't changed, your focus has, and focus changes everything. One of the most powerful habits you can develop is learning to challenge your assumptions. Whenever you catch yourself saying, I can't, ask yourself, is that actually true? Or is it simply something you've repeated long enough to believe? Because many limitations are nothing more than outdated conclusions. Maybe you failed once. Maybe somebody criticized you years ago. Maybe you experienced rejection. Maybe you made mistakes. And without realizing it, you turn those events into permanent labels. But failure isn't identity. Rejection isn't identity. Mistakes aren't identity. They're experiences. And experiences can teach you if you're willing to learn from them. That's why every day you should actively replace limiting beliefs with empowering beliefs. Instead of saying, I can't do this, say, I haven't mastered this yet. Instead of, I'm not qualified, try, I can become qualified. Instead of, I always fail, try, I'm learning through experience. The difference may seem small, but small mental shifts create enormous behavioral shifts, and behavioral shifts create results. This reminds me of something that made Charlie Munger extraordinary. Munger spent decades studying psychology, decision-making, and human behavior. One of his greatest insights was that most people are trapped by mental models they never examine. They think they're being objective, but they're actually prisoners of their own assumptions. That's why Munger constantly challenged his thinking. He looked for opposing viewpoints. He questioned his own conclusions. He actively searched for reasons he might be wrong. That intellectual humility became one of his greatest advantages, and it can become one of yours as well, because growth begins the moment you stop defending your limitations. Here's another important truth. Your mindset doesn't develop during easy times. It develops during difficult times. Anyone can be optimistic when everything is working. Anyone can feel confident when they're winning. The real test comes when things go wrong, when plans fall apart, when opportunities disappear, when failure shows up unexpectedly. That's when mindset matters most. Do you see obstacles as proof that you should quit? Or do you see them as part of the process? Do you see setbacks as permanent or temporary? Do you see challenges as punishment or preparation? Your answers determine your future. I once heard a founder describe entrepreneurship this way: every problem is tuition. Think about that. Instead of viewing difficulties as evidence of failure, he viewed them as payment for an education. That simple perspective allowed him to keep moving forward while others quit. And that's the power of mindset. It changes how you interpret reality, which ultimately changes the actions you take. Every day, work on strengthening your mindset. Read something that expands your thinking. Listen to ideas that challenge your assumptions. Spend time around people who think bigger than you do. Question beliefs that no longer serve you. And little by little, you'll begin to see possibilities where you once saw limitations. Eventually, you'll discover something remarkable. The barriers you thought were holding you back were never walls. They were doors. You just hadn't learned how to open them yet. Time management. Now let's talk about something every human being receives in exactly the same amount: time. No matter who you are, no matter where you live, no matter how wealthy, connected, talented, or successful you become, you still get the same 24 hours in a day. Not 25, not 26, 24. Which means one of the greatest differences between successful people and unsuccessful people is not time itself, it's how they use it. Time is the ultimate equalizer, but it's also the ultimate multiplier. Use it wisely and it compounds. Waste it carelessly and the consequences compound as well. Here's what makes time different from money. You can earn more money. You can recover from financial losses. You can rebuild wealth. But once time is gone, it's gone forever. You never get it back. Not a single minute, not a single hour, not a single day. That's why learning to manage your time is one of the highest return skills you'll ever develop. Yet most people don't actually manage their time. They react to it. They wake up and immediately start responding. Emails, notifications, messages, requests, problems, meetings, distractions. The day controls them instead of them controlling the day. Then they wonder why they're busy all the time but rarely make meaningful progress. Sound familiar? Here's a question worth asking. How often do you end a day feeling exhausted but unable to identify what you actually accomplished? For many people, the answer is far too often, because being busy and being productive are not the same thing. Busy people fill their calendars. Productive people move important priorities forward. Busy people react. Productive people decide. Busy people focus on activity. Productive people focus on outcomes. And that's a critical distinction. One of the most effective ways to improve your time management is to start each day with intention. Before checking your phone, before opening email, before reacting to the world, ask yourself, what are the three most important things I need to accomplish today? Not 20 things, not 30 things. 3. Because clarity creates focus, and focus creates results. Many highly successful entrepreneurs use versions of this strategy. They understand that attention is a limited resource. Every distraction costs something. Every interruption steals momentum. Every unnecessary commitment pulls energy away from what matters most. That's why learning to say no is one of the most powerful time management skills you'll ever develop. Every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. You're spending a piece of your life. The question is, are you spending it wisely? One thing that fascinates me about successful people is how protective they are of their time. Look at someone like Naval Ravikant. He's spoken repeatedly about the importance of focusing on high leverage activities that create outsized results. Because not all hours are equal. 1 hour spent solving the right problem can be worth more than 100 hours spent solving the wrong one. That's why prioritization matters. Not everything deserves your attention. Not every opportunity deserves your energy. Not every request deserves your time. Learning this can completely change your life. There's another mistake people make. They schedule work, but they don't schedule recovery, and that's a problem. Because performance requires renewal. You can't operate at peak capacity indefinitely. Even elite athletes understand this. Training creates growth. Recovery enables it. Without recovery, performance declines. The same is true mentally. The same is true emotionally. The same is true professionally. Rest isn't laziness. It's maintenance. It's preparation. It's investment. So when you're planning your time, don't just schedule productivity. Schedule renewal. Schedule exercise. Schedule reflection. Schedule family. Schedule sleep. Because a sustainable life always outperforms an exhausted one. Over the years, countless people have said, I just don't have enough time. But that's rarely the real issue. The issue is usually priorities, because somehow people always find time for what matters most to them. The challenge is becoming honest about what truly matters. When you improve your time management, something amazing happens. Stress decreases, focus improves, progress accelerates. You stop feeling overwhelmed, you stop feeling reactive, and you begin feeling intentional, in control, purposeful, effective. That's why time management isn't really about managing time. Time keeps moving no matter what you do. What you're actually managing is yourself, your attention, your priorities, your decisions. And if you improve those things a little every day, you'll be amazed at how much your life can change. Knowledge and continuous learning. The next area you must improve every single day is your knowledge. Now, this might be one of the most valuable investments you'll ever make because knowledge is one of the few assets nobody can take away from you. Markets can crash, jobs can disappear, industries can change, technology can evolve, but what you've learned stays with you. And often, the difference between someone who thrives during change and someone who struggles comes down to one thing: their willingness to keep learning. The world is moving faster than ever before. Entire industries are being transformed. Skills that were valuable 10 years ago are becoming obsolete. New opportunities are emerging almost daily. And if you're not learning, you're not standing still, you're falling behind. That's the reality. The good news is that learning has never been more accessible. You don't need to attend a prestigious university. You don't need expensive credentials. You don't need special connections. Today, some of the world's greatest minds are sharing their ideas through books, podcasts, interviews, courses, and online platforms. The information is available. The question is whether you're willing to consume it. Successful people understand something important. Learning is not an event, it's a lifestyle. It's not something you finish, it's something you continue. For the rest of your life, think about this. Most people stop actively learning after formal education ends. They graduate. get a job, settle into routines, and slowly stop expanding their knowledge. Years pass, the world changes, but their thinking remains largely the same. The most successful people do the opposite. They become students for life. They're constantly curious, constantly asking questions, constantly exploring new ideas, constantly upgrading their mental software. And that's one of the reasons they continue growing while others remain stuck. One of the most fascinating examples is Charlie Munger. Munger was famous for his obsession with learning. Even in his later years, after achieving extraordinary success, he continued reading for hours every day. People would ask him how he became so knowledgeable. His answer was surprisingly simple. He never stopped learning. In fact, Munger once joked that he had never met a truly wise person who didn't read constantly. Not occasionally, constantly. That habit helped him build a massive collection of mental models that allowed him to make better decisions than most people. And that's the real power of learning. It's not about accumulating facts, it's about improving your ability to think. Every book you read gives you a new perspective. Every conversation teaches you something. Every challenge contains a lesson. Every mistake carries valuable information. The people who grow the fastest are the ones who actively look for those lessons. Maybe today you read 10 pages of a book. Tomorrow you listen to a podcast during your commute. The next day you study a skill that could increase your value in the marketplace. Small actions, repeated daily, massive long-term returns. And here's something many people overlook. Knowledge compounds. Just like money, one idea connects to another. One lesson strengthens another. One skill enhances another. Over time, your understanding grows exponentially. That's why people who commit to learning often seem to accelerate later in life. They're benefiting from years of accumulated knowledge, years of compound intellectual growth. Another powerful lesson comes from Warren Buffett. Buffett has often said that knowledge compounds like interest. Every day you learn something useful, you're increasing your future earning potential. You're increasing your ability to solve problems. You're increasing your ability to recognize opportunities. And in today's economy, those abilities are incredibly valuable. The marketplace rewards value. The more value you can create, the more opportunities you'll attract. The more problems you can solve, the more people will seek your expertise. The more knowledge you acquire, the more options become available to you. So make learning a daily habit. Protect it, prioritize it, invest in it, because the person you become tomorrow depends largely on what you learn today. And remember this: formal education can help you earn a living, but self-education can completely transform your future. Finances. The next area you should improve every single day is your financial life. Now, whenever people hear the word finances, they often think about money. But financial success isn't really about money. It's about behavior. It's about habits. It's about decisions. It's about how you manage resources over time. And just like every other area we've discussed, improvement happens through small daily actions, not giant breakthroughs, not overnight success, not winning the lottery. Daily decisions, repeated consistently. One of the biggest mistakes people make is treating money as something that simply happens to them. They think financial success is determined by luck, by income, by circumstances, by external factors. But while those things matter, they aren't the primary drivers. Money comes in, money goes out, and somehow they always feel behind. Sound familiar? That's why one of the simplest and most powerful financial habits is tracking your spending. Not to judge yourself, not to feel guilty, but to gain clarity. Because clarity creates control. When you know where your money is going, you can start directing it intentionally, instead of wondering where it disappeared. Maybe today you review your expenses. Tomorrow you identify unnecessary spending. The next day you create a simple budget. Then you begin building an emergency fund. Then you start investing. Small improvements, consistent improvements, life-changing improvements. One lesson I've seen repeatedly is this: income alone doesn't create wealth, behavior does. There are people earning six figures who are drowning in debt, and there are people earning far less who steadily build financial security. The difference isn't always income. The difference is often discipline, the ability to delay gratification, the willingness to think long term, the habit of living below your means. But it's an incredibly powerful one, because financial freedom rarely comes from dramatic decisions. It comes from consistent decisions over long periods of time. Think about compound interest. At first, progress appears slow, almost invisible, but eventually growth accelerates, and the results become remarkable. The same principle applies to financial habits. Good decisions compound, bad decisions compound. Everything compounds. That's why every financial choice matters, even the small ones. This is something that both Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett emphasized throughout their careers. Neither built wealth through reckless behavior. Neither relied on shortcuts. Neither chased every trend. Instead, they focused on patience, discipline, long term thinking, and intelligent decision making. Those principles remain just as valuable today. Here's another important idea: financial growth isn't only about saving money, it's also about increasing your value. The more valuable your skills become, the more opportunities you'll create. The more problems you can solve, the more income potential you develop. The more expertise you build, the more leverage you gain. In other words, one of the smartest financial investments you can make is investing in yourself. Learning, skill development, personal growth, professional improvement. These investments often generate returns far greater than anything else. That's why successful people consistently allocate time and resources towards self improvement. They understand that their greatest asset isn't a stock portfolio, it's their ability to create value. Now let's talk about a principle that has transformed countless lives. Spend less than you earn. Simple, but not always easy. Modern society constantly encourages consumption. Buy more, upgrade more, spend more, show more. But financial freedom often requires the opposite mindset: patience, restraint, intentionality, the ability to distinguish between wants and needs, because every dollar you save and invest becomes an employee working for your future. And eventually, those employees begin generating income on your behalf. That's when real financial momentum begins. I want you to think about something. Imagine making one smarter financial decision every day for the next 5 years. Not huge decisions, small ones. A little less waste, a little more saving, a little more investing, a little more learning, a little more intentionality. What would your financial life look like? Probably dramatically different, because financial transformation isn't usually the result of one big moment. It's the result of thousands of small moments, thousands of choices, thousands of decisions. And every one of those decisions moves you closer either to financial stress or financial freedom. The choice is yours, every single day. Personal development. The next area you must improve every single day is personal development. Now, this is where everything starts coming together, because personal development isn't just one category of life, it's the process that improves every category of life. Your finances improve when you improve. Your relationships improve when you improve. Your career improves when you improve. Your leadership improves when you improve. Your confidence improves when you improve. In many ways, the quality of your life rarely exceeds the quality of the person you're becoming. That's why personal development deserves daily attention. Not occasionally, not when things go wrong. Every single day. Unfortunately, most people focus almost exclusively on changing their circumstances. They want a better job, a better house, more money, better opportunities, better relationships. And there's nothing wrong with those goals, but often they overlook something important. The external results they want require internal growth first. You cannot consistently outperform the person you've become. At some point, your identity determines your results. That's why personal development is so powerful. It addresses the root rather than the symptom. Think about it this way. Imagine planting a tree. Would you spend all your time polishing the fruit? Or would you focus on improving the roots? Obviously, you'd focus on the roots, because healthy roots naturally produce better fruit. The same principle applies to your life. Your habits are the roots. Your mindset is the roots. Your character is the roots. Your discipline is the roots. Your results are simply the fruit. And if you want better fruit, you must strengthen the roots. Every day gives you an opportunity to do exactly that. Maybe today you improve your self-awareness. You spend time honestly evaluating your strengths and weaknesses. Maybe tomorrow you work on emotional control, learning how to remain calm under pressure. The next day, you develop a skill that increases your value. Then you improve your confidence, your focus, your patience, your leadership. One improvement at a time, one day at a time. The process never ends. And that's a good thing, because growth is one of the deepest human needs. Think back to the moments when you felt most alive. most fulfilled, most energized. Chances are you are growing, learning something new, overcoming a challenge, expanding your capabilities, making progress. Human beings are wired for growth. When we're progressing, we feel alive. When we're stagnant, we feel frustrated. That's why personal development isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. One of the most powerful habits you can develop is regular self reflection. Most people spend years observing everyone else. Very few spend time observing themselves. But self awareness creates transformation. Ask yourself questions like: where am I improving? Where am I holding myself back? Those questions create clarity, and clarity creates growth. This is something many extraordinary performers understand. Whether it's elite athletes, successful entrepreneurs, or exceptional leaders, they all share one common trait: they constantly evaluate themselves. They don't wait for life to force growth upon them. They actively pursue it. I remember reading about how many world class performers keep journals. Not because journaling is trendy, but because reflection accelerates learning. It helps them identify patterns, recognize mistakes, strengthen strengths, correct weaknesses, and improve faster than people who simply drift through life unconsciously. Another important aspect of personal development is learning to let go. Most growth isn't about adding something new, it's about removing something old. An old habit, an outdated belief, a limiting story, a destructive behavior. Sometimes growth requires subtraction before it requires addition. Think about a sculptor creating a masterpiece. The sculpture already exists within the stone. The artist simply removes what doesn't belong. Your growth often works the same way. The person you're capable of becoming may already be there. You simply need to remove what's standing in the way: the fear, the excuses, the doubt, the procrastination, the self limiting beliefs. And each day gives you another opportunity to do exactly that. Here's one lesson that has transformed countless lives: you attract what you become, not what you want, not what you wish for, not what you hope for. What you become. If you want success, become the type of person capable of sustaining success. If you want meaningful relationships, become the type of person capable of creating meaningful relationships. If you want financial freedom, become the type of person capable of managing wealth responsibly. Everything begins with personal growth, and that's why improving yourself is one of the highest return investments you'll ever make. Because when you improve, everything connected to you begins improving too. Purpose. Now let's talk about something even deeper: purpose. This is the area that gives meaning to everything else. Because without purpose, even success can feel empty. You can have money without purpose, you can have achievements without purpose, you can have recognition without purpose, and still feel unfulfilled. Why? Because purpose answers one of the most important questions in life. Why? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you pursuing your goals? Why are you making sacrifices? Why do you keep going when things get difficult? Purpose provides the answer. It's the force that pulls you forward when motivation disappears. It's the compass that keeps you moving in the right direction. It's the reason you get out of bed in the morning. Without purpose, discipline becomes harder, goals become less meaningful, success becomes less satisfying. But with purpose, everything changes. Challenges become easier to endure, obstacles become easier to overcome, setbacks become easier to survive, because you're connected to something bigger than temporary discomfort. Now, here's something important. Many people spend years trying to find their purpose, as if purpose is hidden somewhere, waiting to be discovered. But purpose is often revealed through action, not contemplation alone. You discover it by engaging with life, by trying things, by serving people, by exploring opportunities, by paying attention to what energizes you, what excites you, what feels meaningful. Purpose isn't usually found in a single dramatic moment. It's developed gradually, refined over time, strengthened through experience. Maybe today you spend a few minutes reflecting on what truly matters to you. Tomorrow you take a small step toward a meaningful goal. The next day you align your actions more closely with your values. Each step brings greater clarity, and eventually your purpose begins to emerge. Not perfectly, but powerfully. One thing I've noticed is that purpose often exists at the intersection of three things: what you're good at, what you care about, and how you can contribute to others. When those three areas overlap, something special happens. Life starts to feel more meaningful, more intentional, more fulfilling. Because purpose is rarely about yourself alone. It usually involves impact, contribution, service, helping others, creating value, making a difference. Think about the people you admire most, the people whose lives inspire you. Chances are they weren't motivated purely by money, or status, or recognition. They were connected to something larger than themselves. That's what gave them staying power. That's what allowed them to persevere when things became difficult. Purpose creates resilience. I once heard an entrepreneur describe purpose this way: when your why becomes strong enough, the how becomes easier. There's tremendous wisdom in that statement, because when you're deeply connected to your reason, you stop needing constant motivation. You stop relying on external validation. You stop quitting every time things become uncomfortable. Your purpose carries you forward, even when progress feels slow, even when nobody is watching, even when success seems far away. Another powerful truth is this: purpose evolves. The purpose you have today may not be identical to the purpose you have 10 years from now. And that's okay. Growth creates new perspectives. New experiences create new priorities. Life teaches new lessons. The key isn't having a perfect purpose. The key is having a meaningful direction, a reason to keep growing, a reason to keep contributing, a reason to keep moving forward. One of the saddest things in life is reaching success and realizing it wasn't connected to something meaningful. I've seen stories of people who achieved everything they thought they wanted: money, status, recognition, yet they still felt empty. Why? Because achievement without purpose rarely creates fulfillment. Purpose is what transforms success into significance, and significance is what creates lasting fulfillment. So spend time developing your purpose, clarifying it, strengthening it, living it, not once a year, every day. Because when purpose becomes clear, many of life's decisions become easier. Your priorities become clearer, your motivation becomes stronger, your discipline becomes more consistent, and your life becomes more meaningful. Purpose doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you become. Gratitude. The final area you should improve every single day is gratitude. Now, at first glance, gratitude may seem less important than discipline, finances, communication, or purpose. But don't underestimate it, because gratitude has the power to transform how you experience every other area of your life. Most people spend their lives chasing the next achievement, the next promotion, the next house, the next milestone, the next level of success. And there's nothing wrong with ambition. Ambition drives growth. Ambition pushes us forward. Ambition helps us reach our potential. But ambition without gratitude creates a dangerous trap, because no matter how much you achieve, it never feels like enough. You reach one goal and immediately focus on the next. You achieve one dream and instantly begin chasing another. You constantly move the finish line. And as a result, satisfaction remains just out of reach. Many people spend years believing happiness exists somewhere in the future. I'll be happy when I make more money, when I lose weight, when I start my business, when I retire, when I buy the house, when I finally achieve my goals. But life has a way of teaching a different lesson. If you cannot appreciate what you have today, you'll struggle to appreciate what you have tomorrow. Because gratitude isn't created by circumstances, it's created by perspective. Think about how easy it is to focus on what's missing. The human mind naturally notices problems, it notices risks, it notices imperfections. From an evolutionary standpoint, that helped our ancestors survive. But in modern life, it can become a source of constant dissatisfaction. You can have 10 wonderful things happening in your life and still spend all your energy focused on the one thing that's wrong. We've all done it. And when we do, we miss the richness of the present moment. Gratitude changes that. It redirects your attention. It reminds you of what is already working. It reminds you of what you've already overcome. It reminds you of how far you've already come. And those reminders matter, because progress often becomes invisible when you're too close to it. You forget the obstacles you've conquered. You forget the lessons you've learned. You forget the growth you've experienced. Gratitude helps you remember. One of the simplest habits you can develop is taking a few minutes each day to reflect on what you're thankful for. Not because life is perfect, not because there are no problems, but because there are always blessings worth acknowledging. Maybe you're grateful for your health, maybe for your family, maybe for a friend who supported you during a difficult season. Maybe for opportunities that previous generations never had. Maybe simply for another day to learn, grow, and improve. Small reflections, powerful impact. Research has repeatedly shown that grateful people tend to experience greater happiness, stronger relationships, lower stress levels, and improved overall well being. But even without research, most of us know this intuitively. When you're grateful, life feels richer. When you're grateful, setbacks feel more manageable. When you're grateful, success becomes more meaningful. Gratitude doesn't eliminate challenges, it changes your relationship with them. There's another reason gratitude is so powerful. It creates abundance thinking. Many people live with a scarcity mindset. They constantly focus on what they lack, what others have, what they haven't achieved, what they wish were different, and that mindset creates frustration. Gratitude creates the opposite effect. It shifts your focus toward abundance, toward possibilities, toward appreciation, toward opportunity, and the more abundance you see, the more abundance you tend to create. Some of the most successful people in the world regularly practice gratitude despite having achieved extraordinary levels of success. Why? Because they understand something important. Success doesn't automatically create fulfillment. Appreciation creates fulfillment. You can possess everything and still feel empty. Or you can appreciate what you have and feel deeply fulfilled while continuing to grow. That's the balance. Ambition and gratitude. Growth and appreciation. Progress and presence. You don't have to choose one or the other. You can pursue extraordinary goals while remaining thankful for where you are. In fact, that's often where the greatest happiness is found. So every day, improve your gratitude. Notice the good. Acknowledge the progress. Appreciate the people around you. Celebrate small victories. Recognize the opportunities in front of you because a grateful heart sees possibilities that an ungrateful mind often misses. And over time, gratitude doesn't just change what you notice, it changes who you become. Conclusion. As we've discussed throughout this journey, there are 10 areas that deserve your daily attention: your attitude, your communication skills, your self discipline, your mindset, your time management, your knowledge, your finances, your personal development, your purpose, and your gratitude. None of these areas require perfection. None of them require dramatic overnight transformation. None of them demand that you become a completely different person by tomorrow morning. What they require is something much simpler: consistency. Because success has always been less about giant breakthroughs and more about daily improvements. A little better today than yesterday, a little stronger, a little wiser, a little more disciplined, a little more intentional. When people look at extraordinary success, they often focus on the outcome. They see the achievement, the recognition, the wealth, the influence, the accomplishments. What they rarely see are the thousands of ordinary days that created those outcomes. The small choices, the repeated habits, the disciplined actions, the quiet moments when someone chose growth instead of comfort. That's where transformation happens, not during the big moments, during the small moments. The moments nobody applauds, the moments nobody notices, the moments when you decide to improve even when improvement feels slow. Because here's a truth that many people learn too late. Your life is ultimately shaped by what you do consistently, not occasionally, not when you feel motivated, not when circumstances are ideal. Consistently, day after day, week after week, year after year. The person you become 5 years from now is being built today, right now, through your habits, through your decisions, through your standards, through the actions you choose to repeat. That's why every day matters, not because one day changes everything, but because every day contributes to everything. Think about a plane leaving Los Angeles for New York. If the pilot adjusts the course by only a few degrees, the plane eventually lands hundreds of miles away from its original destination. A tiny adjustment, a dramatically different outcome. Life works the same way. Small improvements may seem insignificant today, but given enough time, they create extraordinary differences. The person who reads 10 pages a day eventually reads dozens of books each year. The person who saves a little consistently eventually builds wealth. The person who exercises regularly eventually transforms their health. The person who improves their mindset eventually transforms their future. Small actions, massive consequences. This is why you should never underestimate today's choices. Today's habits become tomorrow's reality. Today's discipline becomes tomorrow's success. Today's learning becomes tomorrow's opportunity. Today's effort becomes tomorrow's achievement. And perhaps most importantly, today's growth becomes tomorrow's identity. So as you leave this message, I want you to ask yourself one simple question. What is one area of my life I can improve today? Not next week, not next month. Today. Maybe it's your attitude. Maybe your discipline. Maybe your finances. Maybe your communication. Maybe your gratitude. It doesn't matter where you start. What matters is that you start, because momentum begins with action, and action begins with a decision. Make that decision today. Commit to becoming slightly better than you were yesterday. Then do it again tomorrow. And the day after that, and the day after that. Keep improving, keep learning, keep growing, keep moving forward, because the life you want is rarely created through one extraordinary decision. It's built through thousands of ordinary decisions made extraordinarily well, one day at a time, one habit at a time, one improvement at a time. And if you stay committed to that process long enough, you'll eventually look back and realize something incredible. The person you once hoped to become has become the person you are. And that journey begins today, right now, with the very next choice you make. Thank you for listening. And remember, your future is not created in a single moment, it's created daily. Choose wisely.